Got another super chat. This one from King of the North, man. Thank you, King of the North, man. Can't thank you enough for your gracious donation, man. Really appreciate you, as always, holding me down. You've always been supportive, and this isn't your first time doing this either. So, man, I really do appreciate you, King of the North, who writes, tuning in late, what do you make of the bad reports coming out about the Haskins looks terrible, Alex looks great, left tackle is a mess, Antonio Gibson looks overwhelmed, and Gandy Golden is a year away from starting. Time to expect bottom 5 offense. No, and this is what this is what the last commenter, DMV Sports 3, just kind of spoke to. So first and foremost, I talked about the offense earlier, but I'll rehash it quickly for you. These days happen in camp, and that's why I brought up Jimmy Garoppolo throwing 5 interceptions in a practice last year. These things happen. They're going to be good days in camp. They're going to be bad days in camp. The offense from J.P. Finley reported today that the offense looked terrible. Everybody was bad. But he said all quarterbacks were bad. Dwayne was bad. Kyle Allen was bad. But you also have to keep this in mind as well, King of the North. Today was a vet day. It was Veterans Day. They gave all, and honestly, I don't know why Jaron Christian gets a day off during vet day. I don't know why. And like I said at the top of the show, he could be nursing something. They could have decided he needs a little bit of time off. I remember last offseason, Jaron Christian was coming off of surgery. Remember, that's part of the reason they went out and they signed Donald Penn is because remember, they had to stick your boy Eric Flowers out there at tackle because Jaron Christian wasn't ready for the start of camp last year because he was coming back from offseason surgery. I don't think that's the case this year. I could be wrong, but I think he's had a relatively quiet offseason, no surgery. He's been able to work on his craft. I heard he was out working with Trent in Houston, so I'd like to think that he's coming off of a healthy offseason. That being said, for whatever reason, they decided that he needed the day off, okay? And so there was no Morgan Moses at right tackle. There was no Jaron Christian at left tackle. And the offensive line struggled mightily today, all right? So that impacts your quarterback play. When your left tackle is getting beat and he's getting pushed into your lap, Dwayne Haskins actually hit the ground today because his tackle got bull rushed into him and knocked him onto the ground. You're not supposed to be touching the quarterbacks. But when your tackle is getting his ass whooped, as Cornelius Lucas and Timon Paris were today, your quarterbacks are going to struggle. Because instead of you surveying the field and looking as to where the ball should be going, you're kind of looking down at the rush. I don't blame them. You know, my guy just got bull rushed into my lap and knocked me down. The minute I see color flash, I'm looking down. My eyes are dropping down too. So, yeah, the offense was off today. It's going to happen. Bad days are going to happen. And I also stress this too. The defense is going to be ahead of the offense because the defense, it's much easier to play defense. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, you're talking about a defensive scheme switch. So schematically, you're going from a 3-4 to a 4-3. So there are some different concepts, you know, gap fits, things of that nature, you know, hand in the dirt versus standing up in a 2-point stance. There are a lot of differences from a 3-4 to a 4-3 defense, you know, but at the same time, defense is defense. You know, there are only so many ways you can play cover 3. There's only so many ways you can play cover 2. You can play man-to-man. There's so, you know, defense is defense. So they should be ahead of the offense. And I expect the offense to struggle. And I've heard that the defense rather, has had more good days than the defense or the offense. And I told you when the season starts, and I said this a month ago, and I've echoed this. When the season starts, every year the defense is usually ahead of the offense. That's usually how it goes. Now, you know, last year was an anomaly because we saw some big numbers put up by offenses last year. You know, Tennessee went to Cleveland last year, put up like 40-something points. The Dolphins started out the season horrendous, and everybody that played the Dolphins the first 3 weeks put up 50+. I think the Ravens put up like, 60-something points on the Dolphins week 1 last year. I think the Chiefs put up a big crooked number last year as well, early in the season. But those are the anomalies. Normally, scores are a lot lower in that first. We put up a big number early in the season last year versus the Eagles, and they put up a big number against us. But normally the defense comes in and they have the advantage because the defense is further along than the offense. This is especially true for us because it's a brand new offense. It's a new offensive scheme. There's a bunch of moving parts. They're still trying to learn what makes Dwayne comfortable. Scott Turner, remember, this is his first full season as an offensive coordinator. He's got brand new pieces that he's learning how to utilize. They still don't know which guys are going to make up the core group of players that they're going to try to get the football to. They know about Terry McLaurin, but Ron Rivera said, look, the only guy that has been in consistently with the ones on the offensive side of the football is Terry McLaurin. The rest of the guys are filtering in and out. The guy opposite of him at receiver, the guy in the slot, the tight ends, they're all revolving doors right now. So there isn't that level of consistency. As we get closer to the season, I surmise that we'll hear about them being a lot crisper, a lot sharper, because they'll have a clearer focus and picture as to, one, who are your true number ones, what guys are we going to try to focus on getting the football to, and two, there'll be a little bit more continuity. This is the first week of padded practices. They just put the helmets on 6 days ago. They just put the pads on 3 days ago. It's okay. These things are going to happen. You had vets out today. The offensive line struggled, which meant the rest of the offense was out of sync. These things are going to happen. It's early on Antonio Gandy Golden. I heard that Antonio Gibson actually had a really good day of practice. He had 2 big runs, one including a touchdown. So, there are a lot of different things coming out of camp. You can't just run with these things. You have to understand that this is a process. All right, this is definitely going to be a process. And there are going to be growing pains with this offense this year. There will be games where we're not going to be pleased with what we see from this offense. You have to understand that right now as a fan. If you go into the season expecting them to hit the ground running and light it up every single week, you're sadly mistaken, and you're going to be disappointed when September 13 hits and we start playing these games for real. When this team hits the field, expect the offense to be a work in progress. There'll be some weeks where they'll be able to take advantage of the opposition and they'll score and they'll look great. And we'll be like, this is what we're talking about. This is what we want to see. And then there'll be weeks where we're playing against good defenses and they shut us down and we can't get it going. And in order to stay in the game, the defense is going to have to rise to the occasion, or special teams is going to have to make some plays. So understand that we're a young team. And with a young team, and this is why I talked about me being a Memphis Grizzlies fan in the NBA, there are growing pains. I've watched the Grizzlies this year grow right before my very eyes. Everyone said before the season started, we were going to be among the worst teams in the league. We were ranked 27th out of 30 teams in the NBA to finish this past season. We finished 1 spot out of the playoffs. We were right there the entire year and just missed it. If not for some injuries in the bubble, maybe we make the postseason, but that's nor here nor there. I said all of that to say this. That was a young team. There are a lot of growing pains. We turned the basketball over way too much, and that includes our superstar point guard, Ja Morant. Turns it over way too much. You saw it in the game, the playing game versus Portland. A lot of turnovers down the stretch. But you know what? You take those things because that's the growing pains that come with a young team. Same thing with this Washington football team. We're young. And I was going to stress this later, but I'll stress it now since we're talking about it. We got 5 guys on the team. I may have missed one, and I don't know how old Aaron Colvin is. He's the only guy, and I think he might be like 28, 29. We got 5 guys on this roster that are 30 years or older on this roster. That's it. We're a young football team. You won't find many teams with an aggregate age, an average age younger than us. We're a young football team, man. All right. So when you talk about young teams, you talk about mistakes. You talk about the growing pains. Those are going to come. You cannot avoid them. You can't skip steps with young teams unless you have a couple of guys. And usually, even when you have a young team and you skip some steps, it's because you still got a bunch of veterans in there helping lead the way. All right. And most likely the team's young, but you got a veteran quarterback that's a beast. Like a Russell Wilson or an Aaron Rodgers or a Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is a young player. Don't forget that. He's a very young player, but he's got a lot of talented players that are veterans around him. He's got a lot of good football players around him. And like a Travis Kelce, veteran football player. All right, when you look around those guys in the backfield, veteran football players, the receiver position. Yeah, Tyreek Hill's a young guy too. But some of those other receivers, veteran football players. Samuel Watkins, a veteran football player. Like, we're a young team. I said all of that to say this. We're a young football team. Mistakes are going to be made. Guys are going to struggle at times. All right? But you've got to be able to take that, understand that those growing pains are coming, and you've got to be able to see it for what it's worth. And you've got to understand that at the end of this tunnel, there's going to be a light. And if these guys continue to progress and grow as players, we're going to be able to see that light shine as bright as possible at the end of the season. And that's why I've talked ad nauseum about 2020 being a season where we just want to see growth and development. All right. You talk about bottom 5 offense. I'm not going to put that on our offense. I don't think we're going to be bottom 5 of the league. I think we're going to see growth from this team as the season progresses. Now, maybe we start out really rough and it's hard to overcome that. And maybe we end up being a bottom 7, bottom 10 offense in the league. That's possible. That's not far-fetched. But we're going to see growth from this football team. We're going to see growth from Dwayne. We're going to see growth from Antonio Gibson. We're going to see growth from Antonio Gandy Golden. We're going to see growth from the young tight ends, whomever those guys end up being. All of them are young. We don't have any veteran tight ends on this football team. Logan Thomas is the most veteran tight end that we have. Him and Richard Rodgers. Think about that for a second. Richard Rodgers might have been in the league all of 6 or 7 years. Logan Thomas has been in the league 5 years max. These are veterans for us. That's how young this team is. So you've got to understand that the growing pains that are associated with young teams are going to come. The thing as a fan you have to understand, and I actually love this process. I don't like the quick fix. I can't stand the get rich quick schemes. I don't want this team to be good. When teams try to buy a Super Bowl, remember the 2000 Redskins, remember the Dream Team Eagles, that shit never works. You can't buy a Super Bowl. You can't buy playoff victories. What you can do is build them. And the good teams in the league, they build through the draft and they add players. I always say, you build through the draft, you supplement through free agency. The good teams do it the right way. I love this process. I love seeing a young team grow up. You have more attachment to a team than when you go out and get a hired gun and you bring in a guy that's a veteran and you bring in this guy that's a veteran and that, because you can't call it your own. This team, if they grow up the right way before our eyes, Terry McLaurin will be homegrown product. Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Cole Holcomb. These are all homegrown products. Guys we drafted and watched grow and develop in front of our eyes. It makes it that much special. Steven Sims, undrafted to a star potentially in this league. That's what you're rooting for if you're a fan. The guys that you can cling to and say, we built that dude. We helped foster his growth and development, and we got to see it all happen over the span of 3 years, and now we're reaping the benefits of this guy playing exceptional football. I love this process because if it's done correctly, it will lead to big things that you'll be able to bask in down the road. So I don't look at it all gloom and doom, like, oh my God, camp is going terrible and guys are struggling and we're going to be a bottom 5 offense. Don't overreact. That's the best thing I can tell you. And understand too, that this is going to be a process. I've been telling you this for a very long time. Some of you hear it, but you're not quite listening, all right? And there are two different things. You can hear something audibly, so you can hear a noise, but you're not listening. I'm talking to you. You hear me, but are you listening? This is a process, guys and gals. This is a process. And there will be growing pains. And we will suffer through some of this. But we'll come out better. If this is done correctly, we will come out better for it, because of it. at the end. And that's what you should be hoping for as fans. I can tell you, in the 21 years Daniel Snyder has owned this team, we've never had a young nucleus quite like this. I take that back. Let me walk that statement back, because I thought we were trending in this same direction right around 04 through 08. 07 really was the Gibbs years. When you had Chris Cooley, you had Sean Taylor, you had LaRon Landry, you had Marcus Washington. There was a nucleus there. LeVar Arrington was still there at the very beginning of that run. There was a nucleus there that I thought we could build around defensively. Offense, I thought we had a long way to go, but we went out and got Santana Moss, and Chris Cooley was coming of age, and you saw the pieces on the offensive side. We could never find that receiver number 2. We went through the Taylor Jacobs of the world and those guys. I know you remember those guys. We could never find, remember we went out and signed David Patton. We could never find Randall L. We could never find wide receiver 2. We struggled with that. All right. But I felt like we were building the nucleus there for a young team. But even a lot of those guys were veterans. I just talked about Santana Moss. He was a young guy still, even when we got him from the Jets. But, Clinton Portis was another young guy that I thought we could build around. But those guys weren't all homegrown products. These guys are. So this feels different. And I love it. I love this process, and I think it's going to be a really good one when it's all said and done. So I'm not doom and gloom, King of the North. Everything's not going to be all flowers and everything's not going to be all peaches and cream. Everything's not going to be all ice cream and candy and gumdrops and, it's not going to be Alice in Wonderland. All right. This isn't, you don't just overnight get good. It's a process. And these are the things you go through, but I'm excited to watch this process unfold. So thank you for the super chat, King of the North. I really appreciate you, man. Thank you once again.
LouieTeeNetwork.